So I made a paper template, and at this point I've cut a lump of sheet steel to the right size using the template, and I am now folding a 90-degree bend in my homemade tool in the press. As you can see, it seems to be working quite nice. It's actually the longest 90-degree bend that I've used on the press so far. In fact, it's the first time I've used this particular new bending tool. And I found that the best way to get a reasonable bend using this press tool is just to do a bit at a time. So don't try and do the 90 degrees all in one hit. Work your way along the line, particularly if the 90-degree bend you're trying to achieve using this tool. Although the actual blade of the tool I've made about, I think it's about 300mm long, about a foot long, maybe just under. So, and I'm bending something slightly longer than that. So you have to work your way along the line, but it works quite well. Pleased with it. Now just one of the many test fits with some mole grips, just clamping it on to see whether I've got the bends about right, and then we can move on to the next bit. Right, I've changed the blade on the press to the 4-inch bending blade to make these smaller bends. It's much more easy to use with a small blade. And should you be interested on how I made this bending tool, although it looks pretty simple, I have made a video on it. So if you look through my video selection, you should find this information. And yes, that is an upside down tarmac rammer which I've left on the pole and put it right through the bench onto the concrete floor. Ideal for knocking over at 90-degree bends and for tapping things flat. What I will do is run the edge, the raw edge of this new panel through the bead roller to give me a flange, which I can then slip underneath the old section, giving me a nice flat finish on the elevation that we're looking at the moment. So I'm now doing a test fit of the front of the firewall, and then I'll put the new section onto this side just to offer it up to see how it lines up. What I'll do is hold it on with some G-clamps, and when I've got it as best I can, I'll mark it out where I've got to put those raised sections, the new raised sections that I'm going to have to make. So just bear with me for a bit. So I am assembling some basically offcuts of iron onto a baseboard of chipboard, side of an old kitchen cabinet or something with some screws, and I've set the distance that I need between the two. I'll just watch the video, it's much easier. So if you haven't worked it out yet, what I'm trying to make is a clamp which gives me something I can slide the steel in between, which I can then put a pattern on the top after it's clamped down, push the pattern down to stretch the steel to exactly the right measurement or shape and at the right measurement of the patterns that I need to weld into that side section. It sounds really easy, doesn't it? So this is basically a piece of offcut of 40mm by 40mm square box iron, which I'm using the grinder to form a sort of domed end to it. I've then welded a small piece in the end of the box iron to give it some strength. You can just about see that there. and then I'll cut it off to the length so it fits into my little jig thing that I made earlier, and then we'll get it ready to go into the press. So just slid in the piece of mould steel, which is going to be, hopefully going to be our pattern, and to see how it fits within my little hinged jig there, and see if it lines up, make a few adjustments, and then in a minute you'll see me stick the pattern on the top, all ready for the press. Having now placed it on the press, I'm clamping down with a couple of G-clamps to make it all nice and tight. Just try and stop as much distortion as I can. I'm assuming that the two wood screws at the other end of my little hinge jig should suffice. I've screwed them down pretty tight. So it's all looking pretty good. Just wait to see how it turns out. So after all that mucking about, time and effort, what's the end result? Was it worth my time? Well, it's a good start, but I think I can improve on it. So let's have another go. Someone once said on a YouTube channel, if you've got room for another clamp, then you haven't got enough clamps. And that, I remember that. So this time I'm going to clamp it not only on the front with the G-clamps or sash clamps, I'm going to put some G-clamps around the back and really clamp it down a bit tighter and see if that improves it. Now you may not think so, but actually this is an improvement. I've got the basic shape there, which is what I wanted to achieve. Never get enough hammers. So this old building club hammer, absolutely perfect to go on that flat section. It was just the right size, and just using that and that panel beating hammer, well, not even my panel beating hammer, it's Kevin's, my mate Kev, who helped me unload the MGC in the first place. Just using that panel beating hammer, it just worked a treat. Of course, this is all a bit of guesswork still, because although I've measured it and bent it and measured again, and I'm still not convinced that it's going to end up quite the right shape to match up with the existing panel. And if it's a few mil out, I know that's going to bug me forever, so I do try and get it as accurate as I can. Okay, so I'm just marking up where the front edge of the curve needs to be, and then the next phase will be to get the two shapes that I've made and to trim and fettle them to try and get them to fit the old panel.